butternut squash. This is such a hearty vegetable for you to be having in the winter time. It is loaded with antioxidants and especially with vitamins that can help fight free radicals in your body. So there is a reason why your parents or your grandparents gave you good advice when they said you should eat your vegetables. We are finishing up the last two of our butternut squashes. This past year we grew the butternut waltham and the, I think it's orange butternut songka, which is two varieties that we grew here that grew very well for us. Very happy with our product for this year, and we'll definitely grow more next year so that we can eat throughout the winter time into spring and summer until we have our new produce at the end of the fall. Now, like I said, we grew these butternut squash in our garden last year. I started them from seed inside, just a little bit ahead of our last frost date. Now, you don't want to start them too early because they don't like to be root bound in their pots. So I think about a month ahead of the time that I could plant them outside. I started them inside in our indoor greenhouse. I'll link a video for you below if you want to know how we made this seedling cabinet. And then when our last frost passed, I planted the little plants outside straight into the garden, and we let our butternut squash trellis on this cattle panel. It worked really well actually. They hung perfectly, tied themselves to the trellis and then hung vertically, which helps them not be on the ground and get all kinds of diseases that way as they're laying on the grass, and if it rains or gets moisture there in the mornings with the dough. You could have plants that are susceptible to some kind of pest or disease because of that, so I think keeping the plants off of the ground was a smart decision. Now, I think it would have been better if the plants were bigger, so I think I'll start them indoors a little bit earlier this year and just keep potting them up so that they don't get root bound in a small pot, but that they have a chance to grow to significant size by the time we can plant them out after our last frost date. Now, we are gardening in zone 8. Not that that really gives you all that much information. It will totally depend on where in zone 8 you are, and you know, lots of other things in your area can affect how your transplants and seeds will grow. But I give you this information because I want to say that we started them indoors last year around April, planted them out in May, and only harvested at the end of September, beginning October. So that's a lot of months of growth outside in the garden. So definitely want to give it lots of garden space if you are going to grow this yourself. But definitely worthwhile. I mean, when you cut this butternut squash, the inside orange is just beautiful. There's something about real food that just is not like the food that we get in our stores, sadly, today. So if you want a great tasting butternut, grow it yourself if you're able. You can grow it vertically, so if you don't have a lot of room or a really big garden, you could grow this out on your balcony. Just know that it is a plant that will want to vine and continue to sort of find a path to grow, so you will need to help it with some supports, and then if these vegetables get too heavy, you'll need to find a way to kind of help hold them up to the trellis so that it does not break and fall off. Now, if you are going to grow this, you want to grow these vegetables until their skin on the outer edge feels nice and hard. Then you know they have cured, and you can pick them and keep them inside your house, either on a shelf or a storage, some kind of pantry system, and they should be good up until springtime. Anyway, they've lasted us a couple of months here, so that should carry you through your winter and maybe spring season. Now, you can usually find me either in the garden doing some kind of garden projects and growing our food, or learning how I can make that more efficient and more successful for the food that we're trying to grow, or here in the kitchen actually making food or baking something nice. So if that interests you, would you consider sticking around and supporting our channel? That would be awesome, having you along for the journey. And now, how I make this butternut squash is very, very simple in the oven. If you need a very quick dinner or a midweek vegetable and you don't know what to make, this is so easy. You just cut your butternut squash in half, remove the pits, which you can save and do other things with if you want to, like dry them to snack on or crush them for some kind of flour, whatever you want to do to eat those seeds later, but most of the time we just discard them. Or you can save them to plant them again next year. That's another option. But most of the time we just discard them, scrape them all out, and then I just put these butternut squashes face down and pop them into the oven for a whole hour at about 350 degrees Fahrenheit. That's it. And it comes out super nice. You can test with a fork to make sure that the butternut squash is soft and kind of, you know, it'll be easy to eat. It doesn't have to be mushy, but at least you should be able to get a fork in without much effort. And you can also eat this butternut squash with the skin on if you prefer it that way, or remove it, up to you, but cook it with the skin on for an hour and you will have a delicious butternut squash, which makes a perfect side for basically any kind of meal. I usually make some kind of meat in the evening, and that carries us over to the following evening sometimes, and so I can just quickly make a butternut squash as a vegetable side either for that night or the following night when we're eating leftovers. We like to eat it with our roast or our lamb, or maybe if we're having steak. I know it sounds all very fancy. The way that we source our meats is very interesting, and I think I'll make a video about that sometime. If you're interested, let me know. You can also have it with chicken. You can have it with anything. It's a vegetable that goes with any kind of food, so if you like butternut squash, consider making it in your oven this way if you didn't know. It's this easy to make it in the oven yourself. So you can pick up some butternut squash from the store if you haven't had any in your garden yet, and make it with confidence. It is that simple just to have a delicious vegetable on the side. Now you can spice it up a little bit. You could add some oil if you want to. You could add some honey or sugar and cinnamon if you're going for that kind of flavor. Sometimes we do, depending on what kind of meal we're eating, but if we already have lots of other staples, I don't go too crazy with my butternut squash, especially if I don't have a lot of time. Now you could also make butternut squash soup, which I'll be making here pretty soon, and if I do, I will link it somewhere here or down below for you to check out. And there's also another way where you can make butternut squash on your stovetop by cubing it and adding things like turmeric, ginger, garlic, things like that, just to make it some kind of hearty other kind of vegetable. And when I make that, I will also link a video to that here. But basically there's many ways you can make butternut squash, but if you need a quick dinner idea, this is the way you want to go. Just roast it in your oven for 1 hour and you are good to go. Now if you're here because you're interested in the benefits of butternut squash, it is so healthy for you. It's worthwhile eating because it is filled with antioxidants and vitamins that include vitamin A, C, K, all very good in helping to nourish your body and your immune system. Who wouldn't want that? It's also filled with potassium and beta-carotene, I think that's what it's called, beta-carotene, something like that, which helps fight free radicals in your body. Very, very important. We've got all kinds of things going on in our body, so anything that can aid it from any sort of negative bacteria or things that are happening and help it do its functions as it should. Definitely we want to be consuming that and aiding our bodies. And so butternut squash is an easy way where you can just make a vegetable as a side for your dinner, but also take care of your body and nourish it. So, and it's important to say here that you should get a good supplier. I know butternut squash is very readily available and you can buy giant butternut squashes from nearly any grocery store, but it is worthwhile to look for a supplier that is going to grow you some real food. As you know me, I don't really want to say organic, that has lots of meanings, but find a supplier that's going to give you a real, true butternut squash. The taste will be different, and of course, if the plant hasn't been messed with, it'll have all of the health benefits that it was designed to have. So get a real supplier, a good one, and now you know how to make butternut squash. And if this has been helpful to you, please consider liking this video and supporting our channel, and catch up with our upcoming content. Lots of other butternut squash recipes to come, and also how we are going to grow that in our garden this year, as well as many other vegetables that may be interesting to you. So stick around and we'll catch you in the next videos. See ya. Bye.